Good morning, lads and lasses. It is the Shooting the Schmidt podcast, Isocast Part 2, I believe. Part 2 or Part 3, I forget which at this point. But at any rate, let's just catch up on what's been going on. Well, the latest thing for me was UFC 253, Izzy versus Costa. Great event. Exceeded my expectations by a lot. At least given, the last one, which was, decent. No disrespect to Cormier or Stipe. But this card, my God, this card. I guess we'll go from the top down. Izzy versus Costa. Costa became really hesitant against Izzy's feints. Then eventually decided to come in, got his face ran onto a left hook, knocked him almost spark out. Izzy TKO'd him quickly after. And what else can you say about that? Absolutely masterful performance by Izzy. Couldn't really ask for more after the last one with Romero, which was a little slow, but nonetheless, beautiful performance by Izzy. Feinted, kicked him in the leg a whole bunch, kicked him in the head, which set up at the beginning of the end, rocked him with another counterpunch, finished him. Game. Good fight. Then, the co-main. Dom Reyes versus Jan Blachowicz. Blachowicz destroyed Dom Reyes. It seemed like everything he connected clean with, it almost destroyed Dom's body. Like wherever that damage was localized. Round one, he kicked him in the ribs a few times. It looked like he probably shattered Reyes' ribs. There was an enormous, ugly bruise all about Reyes' ribs. I was aghast how that didn't slow him down immensely. Though Reyes did look a little deterred in this fight from the beginning, so that probably didn't help matters. Round two, Jan keeps warding him towards his right side. I'm pretty sure he knocked him out with a right hand. And turned his nose sideways shortly before that. And then sent him to Wobbly Town right after that. I've never seen Dom Reyes do the chicken dance like that. It was something to behold. And surprised me immensely. Jan's 37 now, a little bit of a late blooming career. It's quite impressive. Much respect to Jan, though the heavier weight classes you do tend to see more of an ability to rise later. What with guys like Randy Couture and, that's mainly the big one that sticks out. Randy got titles at heavyweight and light heavy, and I think he might have been the oldest at both, but I could be wrong about that. Maybe it was DC at heavyweight. Nonetheless, really cool for Jan. Come a long way. Had to do a lot of traveling, I'd imagine, given his schedule. Fighting in a lot of different places in Europe. You know, he'd be kind of their guy when they wanted to call up some European talent for, like, fight night cards. But yeah, good job to Jan. Next. The flyweight fight, the co-main event. Kai Kara-France and Brandon Royval. Holy crap, dude. Just dudes rocking each other back and forth. Brandon Royval seems like he fights like an alien. I mean, the guy's throwing spinning elbows as he's stumbling to the ground, knocking Kai Kara-France down, and then he's doing a whole bunch of 10th Planet Mission Control crazy stuff with omoplatas and gogoplatas. And he eventually gets the finish by standing guillotine or jump guard guillotine and ended the fight from there. Kai Kara-France looked pretty good. So did Brandon Royval. Brandon Royval was just a little bit better, a little bit crazier, and yet a little bit crazier and a little bit more creative, it would seem. I'd imagine his frame advantage for this division helps a lot in landing so much too. The man's 5'9" at flyweight, which is gangly. Really helps with the range on things. Though I think the reach might have been close, which is interesting. Because Kai France is quite short, but has really gangly arms himself. But anyway, absolutely great fight. I would watch that again. If not for the fact that it would be on pay-per-view. I'm not going to pay $60 again. Or who knows, maybe I will at some point, because that shit was really good, actually. The women's bantamweight fight. Caitlin Vieira versus Sajara Eubanks. Won a decision. Okay fight. I can't say much more than that. Let's see. Before that, we had Hakeem Dawodu versus Zubaira Dukagov. I'm probably not doing that right. Anyway, Hakeem Dawodu looked really good. He was tagging up Tukagov's lead leg. It was making it look really red real early with that, new addition of the MMA meta, the calf kick. But Hakeem actually just looked crisper at what Zubaira usually is good at. Dawodu was outboxing and out-kickboxing Tukagov for the majority of it. Tukagov had his moments. He landed a couple, probably 1, 2, or 3s on Hakeem. But Hakeem just slowly took over as the fight went on. And by the third round, Tukagov just really didn't have any answers. He was kind of just jogging away from Hakeem, and Hakeem was shouting at him like a maniac with his hands down, walking towards him. He explained later that that was a tactical choice, which was interesting. He figured Tukagov would try and shoot on him, so that's why he kept his hands down in such an exaggerated manner, while walking forward with no defense shouting at him, which was pretty cool to witness. He seemed a little loony at the time, but it's actually some good decision-making going on there, I guess. Let's see. Prelims. Brad Riddell, Alex De Silva, Coelho. Brad Riddell, gritty fighter, put out a gritty fight. Lost the first round, came back, got in Alex De Silva's face, roughed him up. Good win by Brad Riddell. Good performance. Fun to watch. The welterweight bout, the dreaded next Diego Sanchez bout, the dreaded not retirement of Diego Sanchez. Diego actually looked surprisingly better than I would have gave him credit for. I mean, his defense, while it looked really, really weird, he was doing some like karate posing thing with his lead hand extended, like. It looked like he was doing some sort of kata with his hands at times. But he, for the most part, looked decently defensively responsible against Jake Matthews. And I believe he landed a couple decent shots here and there. Though Matthews definitely landed more significantly when he chose to land with his hands. Eventually took Diego down, lashed him open by the third round with an elbow from the top. Massive pool of blood came pouring out of Diego's face. It looked kind of scary there for a second. They were all practically waiting in it for a minute. I question whether the ref would have stopped the fight or not if he had seen how large that pool of blood was, like from the get-go, because they were kind of in the position they were in against the fence. It looked like Diego's head was kind of hiding as Jake Matthews was smashing him and wrestling him from the top. But no, I was incorrect about that. They eventually stood up. The ref did not stop it due to a cut. I guess that's good for Diego. I don't think he took too much more damage after that moment. So, Diego, I don't know. Give him another Jake Matthews type guy who's not quite coming to his own in terms of the striking, or at least is sort of a middling striker who won't savagely beat the last few brain cells out of Sanchez. Yeah, give Diego a grappler next. Give him someone who won't put an unsavory end to his career. Because Diego's done a lot for us, and I don't know if he has good enough judgment in the moment to really make that decision. Make an informed decision on what he's doing with his health at this point. Given he's basically in a martial arts cult at this point, and it has been... allow me to be a little bold here, a little bit brainwashed. Though maybe the inclusion of what was it? Not Forrest Griffin, but the guy Forrest Griffin fought, um, Stephen Bonner in Diego Sanchez's corner might explain the recent progression. So maybe that can be encouraging going forward. But still, Diego's racked up a lot of miles. I hope he retires soon, like everybody hopes, or at least takes some fun, safe fights, maybe with some grapplers or something like that. That would be good. But enough sad boy hours. The featherweight fight before this, Shane Young versus last minute replacement Lundvold Klein. I forget where Lundvold was fighting. Definitely some sort of European promotion, I think. I put $5 on Lundvold Klein because I knew he was a last minute replacement, so that really kind of plays against the guy who had been previously game planning for possibly significantly different opponent. And I won out on that one. Lundvold Klein marched towards him, kicked him in the head, uppercut hook for the finish, knocked him out. Good win. Nice way to get yourself into the UFC, make a statement. One thing that was not good that did bother me about this fight was that Klein missed weight by 5 pounds, but then again, I mean, it was a featherweight fight, which is one weight class below his usual contracted weight, but I don't know, man. Do what you have to do to get in the UFC. He came in at 150. Shane Young weighed in at 145. 5-pound weight advantage for Klein, meaning he didn't have to kill himself, which casts some shade on a good performance like he had, which is unfortunate. But yeah, Lundvold Klein looks really good. If he's going to have weight issues, though, go back to lightweight, because you got to be a professional about this if you want to stay in the UFC. Just ask John Lineker. And then before that, big boys. William Knight versus Alexa Kamur. William Knight dominated this fight, got a third-round decision, or just a decision, I should say. First time he's ever not finished a fight, which was, I guess, according, because I think this was his first official UFC fight and not Contender Series fight. But Alexa Kamur is a tough bastard. He trains with Stipe Miocic. He seems like a decently rounded individual. Just struggled to put it together against Knight, who was the stronger man that night. No pun intended. But yeah, good win for the Nightmare, William Knight. By God, is that guy jacked. Anyway, then the early prelims. Let's see. I didn't watch the very first early prelim, or at least I didn't bother to finish it because it was looking like it was getting very boring. And that fight was Kadis Ibragimov versus Danilo Marquez. That one went to a decision. Marquez was hanging on Ibragimov's back and was trying to grapple him for a long time. It won him the decision. Ibragimov never really set anything up, just kind of wung wild shots at Danilo Marquez whenever Cadiz himself wasn't tired after throwing wild bombs at him and missing. But yeah, that was a fight. And yeah, enough said about that. Heavyweight fight right after. Juan Espino versus Jeff Hughes. Juan Espino wins by submission, which I believe he did the Alexa Olenek thing. He did the scarf choke. It was strange because it didn't really look like the submission was on all that securely, but you never know. Maybe Jeff Hughes doesn't have that flexible of a neck, and it was just way too nasty to withstand, or he thought he might snap his neck, so tapped out to the scarf hold choke, the signature Alexei Olenek one. Yeah, good stuff by Juan Espino. So that's about it for UFC 253. And what's interesting, I noticed as we go back here, and I kind of noticed previously, the cards seemed to get progressively better as it went on, which was pretty great to experience. Going all the way from wet fart fight all the way to exciting spark out knockouts and spinning elbows on people's knees type of stuff. I'd recommend watching it if you haven't gotten it yourself this weekend. If you can afford to do so, chip in with some friends. It's a card I would recommend showing to friends. It's a good way to get people in the door to the sport if they're not quite into it yet. Great card, at least on the top end. Like I said, got progressively better. Yeah, so it'd be a nice lead-in for anybody you'd like to show MMA to, for those unacquainted. So what have I been doing? I've been training back at MMA. A lot more cleaning procedures in play, of course. That rhymed. Must be a good omen. But yeah, I'm training. I've been at it for a short while now. Since it's been legal again, of course. Still been running. Running less frequently because I accidentally nearly destroyed my joints trying to go 4 miles every other day on top of very high impact MMA training, 5-6 days a week. And I started doing what they call recovery runs instead of normal runs most of the time. And basically what a recovery run is, I heard about it through Dan Hooker's Instagram. I saw him say, "Oh, I'm doing recovery run complete, blah this, blah that." So I looked it up because I had no idea what that was. And what it is that you're basically doing a short distance run, which basically means, I think, under 3 miles. And you do it really slowly over a short distance. And what that does, it just flushes out waste products like lactic acid from your joints and soft tissues, while not creating more impact damage by nature of the fact that you're not going balls to the walls on the run and trying to really grind, given it's both short and slow. And that's actually done wonders. I was really, really pleased to experience a relief in pain in my joints after I just did one. It was pretty uncanny. I did 2 miles very slow. I don't know if I'm even supposed to do that many, but I think the main thing is it's less than 3. But I did 2 miles. I did it really slow, and by the time I came home, I didn't feel like I was 100 years old going up the stairs. And that was beautiful. If you're into running or training really hard over more than 4 days a week, or 4 days at a time, I recommend a recovery run. It's lovely for your soft tissues. But and that comes from, is there any person I can cite? So I, as an uneducated person, am not just the only one recommending this. I don't know. I don't have anything pseudo-intellectual to say about this. So all I know is it did me good things. I might have you try it yourself if you're safe to do so, of course. I don't know what the status is on if you've had like knee replacements or anything like that. So, but whatever. If you're a normal functioning individual, I might recommend it. A normal functioning individual with training pains, I might recommend it. Other than that, what have I been doing? And the answer is not enough, really, I don't think. I think I should be doing more with my time. That's where I'm at mentally. I've been applying for jobs, but that's kind of been a recent development. I meant to be doing that for a longer duration of time while not being occupied with other things. I applied to a thing called MMA casting. Oh my, it started raining aggressively outside. I'm gonna go check on the windows. Sorry about that. That was a little unexpected. Okay. Let's take a breath and figure out where we were. So, running. Yes, not enough. But I applied to this company. It was called MMA casting. I applied to 6 different locations for the same thing. Um, what made that an easier decision is that they said they would cover travel expenses. But what this company seems like it is like sort of a Ultimate Fighter type thing where there's a bunch of amateur bouts and there's a reality show and you fight people. And the bouts would be amateur, I'm pretty sure, and you would get paid for the filming. So this way, hopefully if it works that way, I could stay an amateur fighter, continue to build my record, but then also generate some income on the basis of being on a show. So it looks interesting. Hopefully it turns out to be something good. I applied to every location except Chicago, which would have been the closest location, because it doesn't have Chicago anymore. And so I went for both the California locations, possibly an Ohio one, a New York one, and possibly one more. One of those smaller states. One of the lesser known ones like Maine or something. Pennsylvania. The main thing I avoided was the ones where the states have life-altering natural disasters. So I didn't go for any of the ones. I probably didn't go for ones in those fringe states because tsunamis and things like that, and rainstorms and hurricanes and nasty things like that. Oh, that said, after I actually contradict myself here. I applied to the one in Florida because I hadn't thought about this yet. Or at least I think I applied to that one. But at any rate, not super relevant in terms of exploring that idea. Because I don't actually remember super well. But at any rate, that's the most important thing I've done with my free time lately, is apply to all 6 of those locations for the same thing. But travel expenses are covered, so hopefully that works out. I get it, and that they pay for it, but hell, it seems like it pays well for what it is, so even if they don't pay for it, it might be okay. I'd rather not travel. I would rather go to the one in Chicago if it opens back up because of Rona and flying, and being a semi-responsible individual. But hey, if I got to do it to move forward in life and actually get somewhere with it in terms of landing a job, that would be what I need to do. The necessary evil of the situation, I suppose. I don't want to stay broke. What else have I been doing? Running, training, job applying. Nothing really. Well, I've been talking to friends over social media, but I guess that's kind of par for the course. Given, gathering in groups of people isn't like a recommended to do. So, I did borrow a PS4 from, or my friend's PS4, as a means by which to have something to do on a date. I have been getting on the Tinders and things like that. Minimal success so far. I think I probably suck at prolonging conversation with strangers. it feels strange to me as someone who's introverted and has to guess at things people take interest in. Um, or at least it's a little more awkward almost to do it on social media because I feel like I'm not forced to ask questions because I'm not in the person's physical presence, maybe. Um, or at least it's hard to ask questions and have the same positive intonation when you ask people questions. That makes it easier to come off as being both positive and not interrogative in like a, you know, interrogation crime scene type of way. Like, what about this part of you? Blah this, blah that. Like you don't know how people are gonna read questions that you send them, so it can sometimes make you, or at least me, as somebody who would be a little nervous about meeting people, make it a little bit more difficult to ask questions. But maybe I'm just a bitch and not the cool kind. Not the, you know, I'm a bad bitch and you can't kill me type, but the, you know, I'm a bitch, I can't ask questions because I'm nervous. A nervous little twat. Um, type of bitch. Um, but yeah, so, yeah, I've been on Tinder, um, talking to some people. Most of the time it's not going anywhere. There are a couple people who I've had some cordial conversation with, but I didn't ask for either their number or their Snap or something or other form of social media for soon enough, and they kind of tuned out, as people tend to do on Tinder, because it's an easy app to get sick of if you're in a similar position like myself, where you're not having much success and you get a little frustrated with it. You go away. I get it. But what do you call it? That's the only other thing that's been going on. But that's really all I got going, I think. Yeah, right. Well, I think I started to talk about something, then I strayed away from it. I borrowed my friend's PS4 for a date that was supposed to happen, but didn't happen. So now I got his PS4, and Call of Duty is really fun. It's really fun, man. Um, like I've said to some people, it's my play style is still pretty epitomized by frightened screaming by while sometimes aiming. Um, in other words, I still panic a lot when I play the game. Um, I don't scream as much when I'm in the presence of nobody or not in the presence of friends, which is an interesting thing to note. I'm still very surprised when somebody with an AR-15 in the game about to is sneaking around a corner and they pop up on my screen. Still surprises me, but I notice that I tend to scream in the presence of friends. Well, or yeah, maybe that's a multiplayer thing, but whatever. But yeah, that's an interesting thing I've noticed. Fun game. Still bad at it. My KDR is +1. I get killed like 18 times and get like 19 kills, usually. Or like 17 to 16. But then again, my strategy in the whole thing is basically consisted of find good places to land mines when people rush at me and get kills after I'm dead. So, because I can't aim consistently. So, that's probably summative of why. Um, Other than that, I don't know what else there's to say about at least my personal life. Um, what else has been going on? I don't really do much with my life. I have one overarching hobby I spend enormous amounts of time on, which is MMA. Whether it's training 3 hours at a time or me being at home consuming MMA content really regularly, that seems like it's all I really do with my life. I'm lucky I have friends. I'm lucky I have friends who sort of encourage me to not be so single-minded in what I do. Mm. I really, I'm really a person who likes to be singularly focused, and I think it really helps me. But in terms of performing in that one field, but yeah, you need balance in your life, me included. Um, Everybody does, me included. So I'm glad I have friends who have time to turn me on to things like comedy and guys like what is it? Oh, I've been watching a lot of Eric Andre lately. Good show. I need to formally purchase one of his episode packs on YouTube or something, or maybe I could find it on Amazon Prime. But I've been watching a lot of clips of his show. Great stuff. If you like really outrageous, I suppose non sequitur type humor, um, or just simply outrageous humor. Yeah, he is the king of that, king of subverting your expectations. Um, Man, I have no idea how he's not been sued. Or maybe he has, and I'm just not deep enough into his stuff to know. Good show though. I recommend watching the clip compilations or purchasing the official release of the show. I've been really enjoying it. Um, what else? What else? Um, I got a bamboo tree. Um, that I've been sitting and watching grow over the course of quarantine, or at least half of quarantine for the most part. It's technically not quarantine anymore in the U.S. because we like our freedom. But since this is a not video podcast this time, I'll just include a picture of the tree and some before and afters, maybe some progression of the tree itself in this video in sort of a slideshow-like fashion right now as I'm talking. But that's been nice. It's a cute little thing to look at on my desk. I really like how it's a plant I can touch. It's not a fragile thing. I can like grab the stalk of the plant and like no, it's not just something to look at, it's something I can also touch. It makes it feel more real. uh I don't know if that sounds creepy or if it sounds like I'm some weirdo who's out of touch with reality, but I don't know, maybe both of those things are possible, who knows. uh but anything else? Anything else? Is there anyone else? Is there no one else? I don't know. Let's see. I mean, I could talk about the card next week for the UFC. UFC on ESPN, Home versus Aldana. Let me think about it before we move on. All right, I suppose we will talk about that card because I can't really think of anything else quite so significant at the moment. All right. UFC on ESPN. Home versus Aldana. Women's bantamweight bout. Not belt, but Holly Holm has certainly been in a lot of women's bantamweight belt bouts. Um, Holly Holm, good with her lateral movement, straight shooting with her hands, and round kicks. Irene Aldana seems like a very good boxer. Seems to have a lot of pop on her punches. Very special attribute for a lady fighter. Lady who can produce knockouts with her hands. That should be interesting. I haven't seen how Aldana has done against a lot of lateral movers. So how she does against Holm should be an interesting test. Will Holm just circle away the whole time and pick her off at range? Or will Aldana control the mid-range and box Holm up by somebody who's perhaps, or should I say, as a person who is perhaps a level above the level of boxing game of Holm herself. Let's see. But yeah, who knows? Find out next time. That should be an interesting fight. I'm actually looking forward to that one. Let's see. Co-main event: Yorgan De Castro versus Carlos Felipe. A heavyweight bout. I know nothing about either fighter. Sorry to say. They're both. Okay. One's 6-1. De Castro's 6-1. Felipe is 8-1. I haven't seen anything special from either one of them, but then again, I don't know if I've even seen any one of them, or at least haven't remembered them. There are only a few heavyweights that are on my radar at the moment. But these two aren't a couple of those people. So, sorry to you guys. Maybe it'll be a good fight, who knows? But then again, maybe it'll be a really slow heavyweight slog where both guys get tired after a round and a half and can't lift their hands to save their life. All right. The co-main event. Germaine de Randamie versus Juliana Pena. I'm not familiar with Pena, though I've heard her name several times. Germaine de Randamie, good striker, no takedown defense. And that's how she got schooled against Amanda Nunes. I mean, like I said, I don't know about half of the matchup, so I can't give a lot of insight on it. Just because I know a little more about GDR, I might side with her. Unless, of course, Juliana Pena has some sort of good wrestling that could really spoil GDR's night. So, enough said about that one. Before that, a middleweight bout between Roman Kopylov, perhaps? Roman Kopylov, versus Tom Breeze. Also not very familiar with these two either. I might have heard Hobbylove's or Kopylov's name before. Kopylov's name before. But not massively familiar with these two either. Can't say much about it. Taekwon Townsend versus Dusko Todorovic. I've seen Townsend fight before, but I've not seen Todorovic fight. But Todorovic is 9-0. I remember Taekwon Townsend having some porousness in the striking, I think, against another tall, rangy man he fought. Another tall, dark, rangy man he fought. I forget who that was, but if Todorovic is 9-0, they might be setting him up for another win. Get him to 10-0 against Townsend, who's 21-11. But who knows? Maybe this will be a good test for Todorovic. Townsend, I remember being okay. Not bad, but okay. So we'll see about that. Moving backwards to the prelim card, Kyler Phillips versus Cameron Else. Bantamweight bout. Don't know either of these. Previous to this, Carlos Condit versus Court McGee. Is Court McGee old? I feel like I've heard his name since a long time ago. This could well be an old man fight. Carlos Condit is definitely an old man in terms of fight years at this point. He's racked up tons of miles with fights against Robbie Lawler and the like. Man. Yeah, Carlos Condit, he's it's kind of unfortunate that he still has to fight. I believe he came back to fighting because he had nothing else to do, even though he didn't really want to come back, which is kind of sad. But Condit versus Court McGee, maybe that'll be good. Maybe one of them will get touched lightly and fall down, as is the nature of old man fights. We'll see about that. Before that, a featherweight bout between Charles Jourdain and Joshua Culibao, I believe, if I'm reading that correctly. I believe Charles' nickname is Air because he likes his flying knees. Charles Jourdain recently fought Andre Feely, pre-quarantine, I think. Or perhaps not, or maybe early quarantine. I think he lost a close split decision. He seems like a fun fighter. Reasonably tall for this weight class. I believe he's 5'9" as a featherweight, which is decent. 5'8.5" or 5'9". So interesting to have an athletic, somewhat tall boy in this weight class. Perhaps that'll be fun. Charles Jourdain usually brings it. So, yeah, that should be good. Something to look forward to. Middleweight bout. Jordan Williams and Nasir... Oh my god, I'm going to mess this up so bad. Nasruddin Imanov. Okay, so if you're not familiar, Jordan Williams was on the Contender Series. He's a middleweight, but only because he cuts no weight at all due to his type 1 diabetes. So, he's actually a guy who could well be actually a lightweight if he, as low as a lightweight, if he didn't cut any weight, because he clocked in at his last fight at 180 even, in a 185 bout, which is almost unheard of. And the way he won was via knockout, and not in the way you might think either. Usually you might expect him being the significantly smaller man versus this other larger guy whose nickname was RoboCop. 6'3" dude looking like Jacare, all jacked and stuff. But yeah, Jordan Williams walked this dude, 6'3" RoboCop man, down and knocked him out with like a 3-4 punch combination, and was damn well excited about it, as I would be too if I were in his position. Incredibly impressive from a man who's incredibly undersized for a middleweight. So that should be interesting. If only because I'd love to see how Jordan does against somebody who's actually already in the UFC, as opposed to a Contender Series man. So, yeah. Interesting fight. Tune in for Jordan Williams. Before that, the marquee women's division, women's strawweight, Loma Lookboonmee versus Jinyu Frey. I've heard both these last names, but I don't know a great deal of them, which is unfortunate. But it's a strawweight bout, so it has potential to be good. So watch that. Before that, another spicy division, men's bantamweight. Casey Kenny versus Haley Alating. I probably did that second name there. Probably not the best, but whatever. It's a bantamweight fight. Bantamweight fights are good these days. It's a deep division. Tune in. And to start off the card, some lightweights. Luigi Vendramini. Vendramini versus Jessine Ayari. Again, I don't know anything about these fighters, but hell, it's a lightweight bout. Tune in, why not? And that's the card. So, I don't have much else to say about that, so. And, I don't have any more ideas other than that. Oh, right. Shameless self-promotion. Total Fight Challenge should hopefully be back February. Or at least that's the earliest we can hope to have a live crowd for. I may have said this on the previous podcast, but I don't know. Just in case you missed. So I'm still training. I'm actually at my my ideal weight to start cutting for a fight, so I'm in tremendous shape at the moment. Not to brag, but I'm 12 pounds away from my weight class. And I'll be ready to go February so long as everybody else is. So tune in for that if it's on. If you know me, I'll be selling tickets in person. If you don't know me, you can DM my Instagram at RocksarProtein. That's RocksarProtein. Rocksarprotein on Instagram. DM me for tickets. I can figure out some way to meet you or mail you tickets. You can probably, if we organize an exchange, you could probably send money to me through Zelle, and then that's how we'll distribute the tickets. Yeah, or at least that's how we'll secure the transaction. Any rate, I think that should do us for today. Tune in for the next UFC Fight Night card. Hopefully I'll be back soon and not in another 3 months or something ludicrous like that. I've been neglecting this podcast, so I'm sorry to you, my loyal viewers. All right. Well, as Jack Slack might say, Costa's enormous biceps bless. Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Shooting the Schmidt podcast, Isocast 4, I believe. 4 or 5. This will be an addition to the previous podcast because last time we didn't get things out fast enough to be relevant. So this will be a merger podcast to the previous, as you can probably tell since you've watched the previous 50-some minutes of the podcast up to this point. But anyway, welcome back. Today we're just going to basically recap fights, since that's the only real thing that's happened in the recent time. This weekend was UFC Fight Night, Moraes versus Sandhagen. And as usual, we'll go from the top down. Marlon Moraes fought Corey Sandhagen. Corey Sandhagen knocks him out in round 2 with a spinning heel kick to his dome. Up to that point, Corey had been using a lot of fakes and feints, had been kicking Moraes in the legs, did the good old program low, go high, and you can see in that finishing sequence, even when Moraes was absorbing the head kick, that he was pulling his legs away as if he were going to be kicked in the legs, but Corey came around with a spinning heel kick and finished him quick. Bad night for the Krillin-looking bantamweight. Let's move on. Featherweight bout, Edson Barboza versus Makwan Amirkhani. Edson Barboza gets first decision win at featherweight. Barboza looked fast as usual, and just like his previous featherweight performance, his output was a little bit lower, but that could be a product of the lessened speed differential at featherweight because he can't just repeatedly pot shot with his greater speed advantage at like he could at a higher weight class at 55. But anyway, Barboza looked good. I expected Barboza to win this fight because Amirkhani doesn't really have any gas past the first round. Though what did surprise me is that Amirkhani didn't blow himself out early. He decided to pace himself, but that lent itself to him getting chewed up over the course of 3 rounds. Because if you don't put your foot on the gas against Barboza and back him up, you're kind of in deep trouble. Because Barboza will win 9 times out of 10 if you engage him in a tit-for-tat fight. But yeah, good win for Barboza. Looking pretty alright at featherweight. I might have downed his chances a little bit since the last time we saw him. But yeah, maybe he does have championship potential at this weight class. Said he wanted a top 5 opponent next. I wouldn't be against that. Some challenging fights, though, probably for him going forward. Josh Emmett, I believe, is ranked above him, as well as a good number of other killers. Good killers that could put the pressure on him with boxing. So you have to pick his next matchup carefully if there's a chance in that top 5. Moving on, we had a heavyweight bout between Ben Rothwell and Marcin Tybura. I thought Tybura was going to melt because he's also one who's had cardio issues in the past, but or at least that's what I understood. But he looked good in this fight all throughout each of the 3 rounds. He really improved his head movement and his boxing game. Ben Rothwell swung several more times than he did at Tybura, but Tybura was just rolling and slipping and moving just beautifully. Tybura had already really been good and really mobile as a heavyweight, but his head movement hadn't looked quite as clean as it did on this night. So cruised his way to a decision. He landed at a surprising 60-some% accuracy, which was beautiful. Ben Rothwell, like I said, threw a lot more, landed about the same or a little less, and that cleanliness of Tybura's striking really lent itself to the well-deserved decision in the end. Moving further along, we had a middleweight bout between Marcus Perez and Dricus du Plessis. Marcus Perez was looking really slick early on. He was in that good old southpaw bouncy karate stance, nice and long stance, making good use of the southpaw double attack, body kick, left straight, head kick, left straight. You know, really disguising the movement of either weapon. With the rotation of the hips being identical and such. Really looked like he was frustrating Dricus du Plessis, who was making his debut. Du Plessis really looked kind of nervous almost, very skittish. He kind of was, I think he was crossing his feet at several points in the fight. His stance looked really strange and narrow. It almost looked like he had his knees pointed in a lot of times. And his knees pointed in a very narrow parallel stance almost when he faced Perez. But as soon as Perez decided to get a little creative, Susie started to feel himself. He tried to throw a Yair Rodriguez spinning elbow as he had his back to the fence. And du Plessis just melted him with a left hook as his head was turning, and that was game over. So good job to du Plessis. I guess his octagon jitters, as they were talking about throughout the broadcast, are hopefully over with at this point, because he was looking damn awkward up till the point where he completely destroyed Perez. But yeah, good job, du Plessis. I hope things improve from this point for him. He certainly has finishing power to compensate, even if he doesn't, though. So that's something of note. Moving on further, heavyweights. Tom Aspinall, precise counterboxing Englishman. Let's see, versus Alan Bodot. Maybe I'm saying that correctly, maybe not. Alan Bodot or Baudot was looking a little bit one note. I think he was utilizing a lot of kicks earlier in this fight, kicks and spinning attacks to sort of disrupt the counterfighting game of Tom Aspinall, his counterboxing game. But eventually, when he did try to put things together with his hands, he got countered hard, I believe. Or I forget actually whether Tom Aspinall got a takedown of some kind. I think this might have been the fight where Tom Aspinall threw an uppercut and changed levels to get the takedown, and then eventually finished him with ground and pound. Stoppage could have been a little bit early in terms of damage, but it didn't really look like Bodot was getting out of there. Even if he had absorbed some more, so good stoppage. Solid win for Tom Aspinall. Seems like a guy who's a little hard on himself. He was not impressed by his performance at the end of the day. Wanted to either get him out of there a lot sooner, or maybe he wanted to show some more of his skills. I'm not sure. I didn't stick around for the interview. But Tom Aspinall is looking good. Much cleaner of a striker as compared to a lot of heavyweights, it seems. But like he said, he's still very green. And I'm glad he recognizes that, because people getting a little too overzealous early in their career could be a point of undoing. So good that Aspinall has the maturity to realize that he's still early, despite being quite good, seemingly, compared to other heavyweights. But he needs to fight some better competition. I think that's what he opted for after the fight. Good stuff. Good job to Aspinall. Let's move on. Before that, we had a featherweight bout between Yusuf Zalal and Ilia Topuria. Topuria, I believe he won this fight on the basis of takedowns. That was really the game changer in this fight. Zalal looked pretty smooth on the outside as usual, but he got taken down way too much. And eventually, and a couple points, he actually got tagged really clean, actually. Perhaps the grappling threat of Ilia Topuria set up the strikes that surprised Zalal. But Topuria got him down, dealt more damage, even on the feet sometimes, as compared to Zalal, but cruised his way to a decision. Decent fight. On to the prelim card. Alright, middleweight bout. Tom Breeze versus KB Buller. I'm going to go with that. Tom Breeze evidently won by KO TKO. I don't particularly remember this fight, if I'm honest. I'd have to go back and look. It definitely wasn't the highlight of the prelim, which we'll get to in another second or two. So I guess we'll just talk about the next one. Heavyweight, Chris Daukaus versus Rodrigo Nascimento Ferreira. Chris Daukaus, I was really bagging on Chris Daukaus, if I'm honest, early in this fight when I saw him. He seemed really undersized for a heavyweight, both in terms of his stature and his weight. He only weighed in, I think he weighed in barely 230 or something like that. And he looked like a guy who might have just really blown up a lot from middleweight or something like that and let himself go. But I was totally wrong. He knew exactly what advantages to play to eventually get the finish. He used his speed and mobility beautifully. Like I said, he came in light, so that plays into that. Nascimento Ferreira came in at the heavyweight limit. I don't know, maybe even cut some weight. So definitely great job to Chris Daukaus to pressing his advantages there. Really putting together powerful, fast combinations against Nascimento Fajeda. Got the finish in round 1 at 45 seconds, no less. So, damn good by Chris Daukaus. Surprised my ass quite a bit. Before that, this was the highlight of the prelims. Impa Kasanganay versus Jaquan Buckley. Jaquan Buckley probably scores the most flashy kick knockout we have ever seen in the UFC in the recent years. Like people are saying, this was a knockout of the year contender. So basically, Jaquan Buckley, he was coming in throughout the fight with his boxing, looking really smooth, slipping and rolling as he would throw combinations to get inside. Intermediately dispersing some body kicks in between that beautiful combination inside boxing. And at one point, Kasanganay caught one of his intermediary body kicks, and because Jaquan Buckley basically spun into, I guess you could say, it in the moment it almost looked like a Taekwondo two-touch kick, and just slammed the spinning back kick into Kasanganay's face, and just sent him to the shadow realm. It was a beautiful execution of violence. It really put the art in martial art for this fight and this finish. Absolutely beautiful. You can see the finish again on the UFC's Instagram if you want to go see it there. If you don't have ESPN Plus, I'd recommend going seeing it because goddamn, it was something to behold. So, good job to Buckley. I thought he would win this fight, but there's no way I thought that was going to happen at all. That was just ungodly. You don't picture guys like Mike Tyson to be able to throw such beautiful, sharp, flying kicks like that against anybody. That just seems almost contradictory to the build type. But Jaquan Buckley absolutely melts Impa Kasanganay and takes away his 8-0 undefeated record. And by God, maybe he has, given that, maybe he has some great potential in this middleweight division. I'll certainly be tuning in to his fights in years to come. Coming down a little bit from that one, let's go to the bantamweight bout that happened before this. Decently back and forth fight. Ali Al-Qaisi versus Tony Kelly. I believe each of these fighters knocked each other down a couple times, which was pretty exciting. But Al-Qaisi, I believe, got knocked down a couple more times than did Tony Kelly. And that fed into the according decision that Tony Kelly mounted himself by round 3. So, good stuff. Good job, Tony Kelly, for defeating a guy that looks... for defeating a decent fighter in Al-Qaisi. I don't know. Al-Qaisi... This is irrelevant to the actual metrics of the fight, but Al-Qaisi kind of reminded me of... his appearance-wise, he reminded me of the Vulture from Spider-Man, except just like a little bit more jacked. Whatever. But anyway, good job by Tony Kelly. Good fight by him. Let's go further back. Previous fight to this, Giga Chikadze versus Omar Morales. Omar Morales was 10-0 and undefeated going into this fight. Giga Chikadze had been looking good in his fights prior to this. Giga Chikadze had smashed this one bantamweight guy who had come up to fight him, who was doing a lot of interesting hopping kick checks in their last fight. So, yeah, him and Chikadze shared an interesting last fight. But like I was saying, on the subject of this fight, Chikadze and Morales, Chikadze was trying to melt Morales from the word go. He'd been pretty desperate for a finish, it seemed, and the commentary was talking about it most of the night. Chikadze really, really slamming in left straights from the southpaw stance, but Morales just ate them like they were nothing most times, provided he wasn't on one leg. Yeah, but yeah, Chikadze making good use of the southpaw double attack as well, slamming in body kicks, left straights, sometimes switching to orthodox, throwing some leg kicks, and then actually throwing some step up lead kicks to the lead leg of Omar Morales. Something that was a little overlooked by Chikadze in this fight after about halfway through, that he could have gotten to more maybe, because at one point everybody kind of noticed, well, except for Chikadze, that Morales' shin was starting to redden and swell. So I don't know, maybe Chikadze hurt his own shin kicking Morales in the shin, but maybe it could have also been that Chikadze just got a little too desperate for the finish and wanted to headhunt a little too much by the first and a half round. So yeah, was really chasing that finish. Actually managed to knock Morales down clean in the third round, but wasn't able to finish him, and it rode his way to another possibly regrettable decision on his part. Really wanted that finish, didn't quite get it, but showed that he is absolutely capable of it, despite not quite getting it. Definitely has finishing power for this division, which is a very good combo and a very intriguing thing, the tall man that Chikadze happens to be. But anyway, good win for Chikadze. Let's scroll it further back. Women's bantamweight bout: Cortez versus Egger. Cortez versus Egger. Yes, I am reading that correctly. Tracy Cortez cruised her way to a decision. Wasn't a very eventful fight. I believe she got some takedowns and controlled Egger and/or passed to better positions throughout the fight, threatened some submissions. But like I said, wasn't very eventful. I found myself hitting the fast forward button on this fight several times. But not much to say about that fight. Good job, Cortez. I thought Egger was going to get the upset here. She was an underdog in this fight, but Cortez proved me wrong here. So, good job, Cortez. Let's scroll back to the first and final fight. Bruno Silva versus Tagir Ulanbekov. So Ulanbekov gets a decision win. If I remember correctly, Ulanbekov was looking a little stiff in the striking, but had his moments, but eventually got it to the ground at several points with some chain wrestling takedowns, some chain wrestling, I should say, and some good Khabib-style low single takedowns. Was able to briefly triangle the legs at some point in the typical mermaid Khabib position up against the cage, and was able to beat Bruno Silva up at different points in the fight. And that was about it. But Bruno Silva did look sharper on the feet. But eventually the takedowns intermixed with the intermittent success of Ulanbekov on the feet when he did have it, eventually got him the decision win. So that's about it for this card. Is there anything interesting coming up next week? Okay. Ooh! Ortega versus the Zombie. So next week is Brian Ortega versus Chan Sung Jung, otherwise better known as the Korean Zombie. This fight's been in the works for quite a long time. Pre-quarantine, for sure. Apparently there was some drama a while ago because Ortega slapped some K-pop star that Chan Sung Jung is acquainted with, I think. Personally, I don't care too much about that. If anything, it just kind of diminishes this for me because it just made Brian Ortega, who seemed like a likable dude, seem like kind of a douche. So, yeah, whatever in regards to that. But the fight itself could prove to be quite interesting. Brian Ortega is kind of hard to parcel out in terms of his striking. What he's known for, as you might know, as a UFC fan, is his jiu-jitsu. Has gotten many Hail Mary submissions that have saved him in several fights, or otherwise put a stamp on fights he was otherwise winning. More often the former. Ortega tends to not turn things up until the third round, which is interesting. I question whether that's a tactical choice from a cardio standpoint, but the fact of the matter is he's shown to have had decent cardio in the past, at least against Holloway, where, I mean, he kind of got destroyed for 3 or 4 rounds straight, but nonetheless was still damn tough and hung in there until his face was turned to mincemeat. But yeah, interesting thing about that. I wouldn't know whether I could call Brian Ortega a power striker or not, whether he's more fast or slow twitch, but I suppose it's somewhat irrelevant to the matter, or or I should say, it'd be rather inaccurate to call him either, because in some of his highlights, we've seen him produce great knockouts, like against Frankie Edgar, with that bus driver uppercut he threw against Frankie Edgar. Really threw that from the ground to the sky, and sent Frankie to Wobbly Town with that one. But Ortega, in terms of his striking, kind of interesting. Likes to use the Philly shell sometimes. Has good height for this division, so that kind of helps with keeping his shoulder in the way. People have a hard time reaching over the top of it to catch him. But seems to be a very even-paced striker, but really knows when to go for a finish, and that's the main thing, regardless of the category of his skill, whether it's in striking or it's in grappling, i.e. submission grappling, jiu-jitsu. He really knows when to go for a finish, and that could be that's the most interesting factor whenever you talk about a Brian Ortega fight. And Chan Sung Jung, also very interesting because we've seen two incredibly different versions of him. In the past, he's just been kind of a wild brawler with incredible cardio and power. But in recent years, it seems he's become a really effective mid-range counterpuncher, and especially fast one too. I think his last fight was a one-punch knockout over Renato Moicano before Moicano left featherweight. Just slipped on the inside of Moicano's jab, slammed in the right overhand, and absolutely knocked Moicano's spark out. Chan Sung Jung is probably the faster fighter in this fight. I dare say another advantage he might have is height, because it seems like his height is massively misestimated, similar to Brian Ortega. Brian Ortega and Korean Zombie have strangely misestimated height, it seems. I think they're both listed as like 5'8" and 5'7" respectively, but Ortega didn't look that short against a 5'11" Holloway, so I would guess they're both actually 5'9", the Zombie's height being more misestimated because he's listed as 5'7", but height's the same. I think Ortega might have a reach advantage. He looks like the more gangly guy, but I could be quite wrong about that. Actually, giving that more thought, I might be very wrong about that, because I think he had a surprisingly short reach, but whatever. That could be another misestimate on the UFC's part, or the UFC measurement team's part. But regardless, similar height, similar reach. Um, if it stays striking, Chan Sung Jung probably melts Brian Ortega. But if it goes to the ground, it could be competitive. Chan Sung Jung has some of the weirder submissions to his name in UFC history. He has the I think he has the first twister submission, which is for those of you who don't know, the first spine lock submission in the UFC. Really nasty. So to sort of explain it again, for those of you who don't know, you just kind of, so you're behind your opponent. You lace the one leg on, like, let's just say the right side of their body, and then you try and scoot their head over to the opposite side of your body and twist the leg the opposite direction you rotate the head, and that puts torque on the spine. But anyway, yeah, Chan Sung Jung owns that very first submission over another guy in the UFC. I forget who. But Brian Ortega is snatching up guillotines and darces left and right. So I think he might have the advantage when it goes to the ground, but Chan Sung Jung might be able to reverse engineer position quite well and defend to get to the feet, where he'll have the advantage eventually. And for that reason, I think I'd favor him to win this fight. He has the advantage in the striking by a much larger margin than Ortega has an advantage in the grappling, I would estimate. At least in terms of how it factors in MMA. So yeah, that fight should be very interesting, and definitely something I'll be tuning in for next week. So yeah, my prediction, Chan Sung Jung, probably a counter combination knockout within 2 rounds. Okay. Ooh, another good one. Previous fight, or fight just underneath that, the co-main, Cyril Gane versus Ante Delija. I honestly have no idea who Ante Delija is, so they're probably going to try and feed Cyril Gane a win. Cyril Gane is 6-0 at this point. One of the more mobile heavyweights, which is a surprising thing as heavyweights go. Heavyweights don't tend to be mobile as a result of just how much weight they have to sling around, which just makes sense from a physics standpoint. But Cyril Gane, a real outlier in that regard. Very mobile and very athletic for his weight class. He's on the mid-size of the class, too, which is equally as surprising. I think he weighs in at about 240 or a tiny bit less, usually. Trains with Francis Ngannou, which is very interesting. Pardon me. And Francis Ngannou is definitely one of the scariest men in this division, as is pretty well established. But anyway, Cyril Gane does some neat karate boxing type stuff, bounces intermediately in between advancing towards his opponent. He looks good almost absolutely everywhere, except one place. Anytime he throws his right hand, it looks like he's pitching a baseball. And, not very fast either. That's the only strike Cyril Gane doesn't have at this point. That doesn't have developed at this point. He always throws this ugly winging overhead amidst the rest of this beautiful striking, and it's almost comical. It's just he's throwing that punch over his knees as is a cardinal sin in boxing. But otherwise, Cyril Gane looks absolutely beautiful everywhere. Good counterpunching, good movement. And good submissions, too, actually. He has a couple submission wins to his name, which is not something many heavyweights can say either. So, Cyril Gane has some real promise in this division. He should probably win this fight, if only because, big air quotes, there's levels to this game. But, yeah, also a fight to look forward to. Well-deserving as a co-main. Scooting back some more, we have Caitlin Chukagian versus Jessica Andrade. Similar to the previous bout, I think I would favor Andrade, if only for well, in this case, actually not because there's levels to this game, if only for the physicality of Andrade. Um, Andrade is one of the shortest fighters in this weight class. She's about 5'1", 5'1.5", I think she's listed as. But good God, is she a freaking tank? Recently she's been, I think her best recent win was that slam over Rose Namajunas. Just, ugh, horrifying and beautiful at the same time. Um, Horrifying and beautiful slam to absolutely melt the well-loved fan favorite Rose Namajunas. But her fight actually most recently was the rematch with Rose, and she absolutely did a number on Rose's face, but eventually got outpointed in a 3-round decision. Chukagian, I believe the selling point of her game is her striking, but I could be incorrect about that. But I think with the developments Andrade has made, incorporating more head movement into her game, relying less on the pull-away counter, that should do her really well in this matchup. And I think she should probably I think if she'll probably get a finish within 2 rounds, maybe. Hard one to call, though, because Chukagian might have some good movement to keep away and lance up Andrade with her reach, because almost everybody has a reach advantage against Andrade. So if Chukagian can use that reach advantage, that will be her path to victory. But my prediction for this one is Jessica Andrade within 2 rounds. Moving back another slot, we have Jimmy Crute versus Modestas Bukauskas. Can't honestly say I know a great deal about these fighters. Similar records, though, which is something of note. Jimmy Crute is 11-1. Modestas Bukauskas is 11-2. Like I said, not much to say about this fight, so I won't pretend I do. Moving back another slot, we have Thomas Almeida versus Jonathan Martinez. Thomas Almeida is back after a very long hiatus. I think the last fight he had was against Cody Garbrandt, no less, which was, like I said, years ago. And he got absolutely smashed by Garbrandt. So perhaps that was a good decision, because we know Garbrandt has serious power and probably did a huge number on the chin of Almeida with that one. So perhaps this time off has served his chin well, done good things for his health maybe. So yeah, a little about Almeida's game. I believe he is I think he's similar to, it's been so long since we've seen him, I've forgotten a little bit about him. But I think Almeida is sort of a forward-moving counter striker. But there are a few holes that I believe in his boxing game that Garbrandt was able to capitalize on, which was the reason for his downfall. So maybe in the past few years, he's, in addition to resting his noggin, has been working on his boxing. So hopefully that serves him well in this fight against Jonathan Martinez. Jonathan Martinez. I might actually know more about Jonathan Martinez than I think. I'm looking him up here. Let's look up his Tapology page. Tapology, Jonathan Martinez. Okay. Okay. Alright, he's 26. His nickname is the Dragon. He's 5'8". So very comparable to Almeida, who I think is 5'8" or 5'9". Also a very long reach for this division, quite like Almeida. He has a 69.5-inch reach, which is almost 70 inches, which is good as a bantamweight. Okay. So, Martinez's last win was his last fight, which was a flying knee to ground and pound over Frankie Sides. And before that, he got beat in a decision to Andre Ewell. Um, okay. I thought this was the guy who fought last week in that wild brawl we saw, but I'm definitely confusing my fighters. But Jonathan Martinez seems like a decent fighter. Should be a decent challenge for Thomas Almeida after such a long time off. Martinez is probably a mid to higher, probably a mid-tier level bantamweight. Probably sort of bottom of the top 15 if I would guess so. So that should be interesting to see where Thomas Almeida is at with the current MMA meta against a respectable, but not like top 5 opponent in Jonathan Martinez. So yeah, that'll be interesting, if only to see where Almeida's at. Moving on to the prelim of the Fight Night card, we have Madzus Gamrot and Guram Kutateledzi. I'm very sorry for that. That's just Gamrot. I'm very familiar with his name. Oh god, that's a good record. That's 17-0 and 1 no contest. Wasn't Gamrot like wasn't he champion in another organization? Let's look him up. All right. Madzus Gamer Gamrot. Okay. What was his last fight? Oh, so I think he was the KSW lightweight champion. That would make sense. That's probably why I heard of him. Okay. I don't know a great deal about Gamrot other than that. He's sort of a mid-sized lightweight, 5'10" as it says here. I think I did a little research on him last week actually, but I think he has a pretty average reach, probably like 72 inches, 70 inches, maybe on the shorter side. But that will be very interesting to see Gamrot up against some UFC talent here. I've actually never heard of Guram Kuta Teledadze, but yeah, interesting to see Gamrot in the UFC. I mean, that's the only real novelty here, because his opponent isn't very much of a recognized name, nor even in like the hardcore space, at least in the space in which I would be a hardcore, I guess, if I'm considering myself a hardcore. I've not heard of Kutla. Let's just call him Goram. I've never heard of Goram. So, yeah, interesting fight, if only to see Madzus Gamrot in the UFC. That's about it. I can't really comment much more than that. Moving backwards, another slot, we have Jillian Robertson versus Polyana Botello. Jillian Robertson, I believe she is a jiu-jitsu specialist. She's the lady with the red hair and the red attire that people will most easily recognize. Botello, is she another submission artist? I feel like she's a submission artist. There are a lot of those in the women's flyweight class, I believe. Poliana Botello, let's search you up too. Okay. No, I don't want her Instagram. I want her record, please. Okay. Poliana Botello. Alright, so yeah, her last win was a decision. And before that, she lost by RNC. Ooh, a couple fights ago, when she was undefeated, she won by body kick and punches. Don't see a lot of ladies getting finishes by strikes, so that's kind of impressive. And that was at a UFC event, no less. So, against elite competition, I suppose you could say. Um, Before that, decision win, canceled bout win at XFC. Um, but I won't go through her whole record, but she seems like she's a decently rounded lass. Decently rounded lass. Um, might be on the creeping towards the later stages of her career. She's 31. Um, you don't see people in the lighter weight classes usually going past 35 because speed diminishes, but I don't know if she was reliant on speed with her style, so that might keep her in this game longer than I would expect. So, that could be an interesting fight. The only thing I guess I can really say about that is her opponent Robertson probably her path to victory is probably just engaging in the grappling at that point and getting a sub. And Vitello's job here would probably just to be to keep it standing. Old classic grappler versus striker or grappler versus more rounded fighter situation. So that's about the nuances of that fight. About all for the nuances of that fight. So let's move forward another slot. Claudio Silva versus James Krause. Claudio Silva is 14-1, so decently winning fighter. I'm gonna guess. I don't know much about Claudio Silva. I've probably seen some of his fights over the years, but I haven't seen anything too interesting from him. I've heard a lot about James Krause. James Krause, I think his last bout was at middleweight against the other English guy with an interesting name, which he lost, but got a lot of respect for taking that fight on short notice, being severely outsized. But anyway, James Krause is back at his normal weight class. He is a fairly technical. He's a fairly technical striker. Has decent wrestling and I believe good jiu-jitsu. So in this case, I would guess the game plan for Krause would be to mix it up well, frustrate Silva with his range management on the feet, and then maybe change it up, go for a takedown, grapple with him some. Yeah, that's about it for that fight. Can't comment too much. Before that, we have a middleweight middleweight Bart, middleweight Bart Simpson. No, not what I mean. Before that, we have a middleweight bout. We have Park Jun Yong versus John Phillips. Park Jun Yong, I believe, is a good striker. I think he comes from a Sanda background, if I were to guess. I think he's one of the recent influxes of Chinese talent we've seen. And John Phillips is kind of a one-dimensional boxing striker. So if Park Jun-young just doesn't engage in some mid-range boxing with John Phillips, I think he cleanly wins this fight however he wants. So that's about it. Park Jun-young just kicked the shit out of John Phillips' liver and keep him at distance or take him down and finish things there or grind it out, whichever. Because John Phillips doesn't have great cardio to my knowledge either. So probably going to go to Park Jun-young in the end. Move back another one. We have a lightweight bout between Jaime Malarkey and Faraz Ziam. Faraz Ziam? Faraz. I'm going to guess if it's Faraz. Even though it's not spelled the same. Or maybe it's Faraz. Okay, Faraz. We'll just call him Ziam. But Ziam versus Malarkey. Very interesting name. Sounds like that 50s word that gets thrown around occasionally. Bachamalaki. Um, don't know anything about this fight. If I'm honest. But it should be a lightweight bout, and lightweight's a great division, so that could be really interesting. Just on that basis. So let's get back one more. We have a light heavyweight bout, so big boys. Gadzimurov Antigulov versus Maxim Grishin. I believe Antigulov is pretty good. I don't know much about Grishin. I don't know what Antigulov is actually good at, but he's a name worth noting, so I will look him up. Antigulov. Tabology. Okay, so he's on the shorter side of light heavyweight. He is 5'11" and has a really short reach, 70 inches. That's actually pretty short for a lightweight reach, so damn. Probably going to be the stockier, stronger man in this matchup. He's ranked 34 at light heavyweight in the world. His last fight was a loss to Paul Craig by triangle choke. Not so much shame in that. Paul Craig's a good submission artist. It's basically what he's known for, so not so bad. Before that, he lost by an uppercut and ground and pound to Olan Zajic, and got TKO'd by Ian Kutalaba in round 1, as Kutalaba is prone to do, get finishes in the first round. So Antigulov is kind of on a 3-fight skid here, but before that he had a massive streak going. He had like what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. He had like a 14-fight win streak going before this, which is quite impressive. Though I don't know if it was against elite competition, because some of those wins are in ACB, now known as ACA. But nonetheless, I'm gonna guess that Antigulov is gonna get it done with his grappling. He seems to have a lot of submission wins on his record. In his last wins, he's had rear naked choke, guillotine choke, rear naked choke, punches, rear naked choke, decision, punches, guillotine choke, rear naked choke, punches, anaconda choke, armbar, knee bar. So, it seems like Antigulov's abilities are well suited, or it seems like Antigulov is well suited to be a grappler, both in terms of his build and his finishing ability. If he hasn't taken too much damage in his last few fights, I'm gonna guess that, i.e., if he doesn't get knocked out in the early goings of this fight, I think he should probably dominate with his grappling. He's a name I recognize, and that's kind of the basis for that, if I'm honest, since I'm not familiar with the rest of what he does. So, yeah, I think Antigulov should probably win over Maxim Grishin, another veteran fighter. But that's about it for this card. So that's about it for the fight. Not recap, but predictions for next week, or preview. Preview. I don't know. Just preview. That's about it for the preview of next week. Is there really anything else going on? Not really. Oh, something I forgot about from last week. Kind of a glaring thing. The big gate news of recent MMA sphere, of the MMA sphere. Israel Adesanya's funny looking pec. Um, yeah, a lot of speculation about what's going on with Izzy's pec there. Um, a lot of people are speculating PED use, and initially I didn't expect this at first, but then what I was expecting was that it might have been a very strange looking pec tear. I figured he might have torn his upper chest, um, and that's why it would sag down rather than roll up, because most pec tears, when you tear the bottom of the chest, tend to roll upwards. So I figured he tore his upper pec and it just rolled the opposite way. But what makes this a little dubious is that Adesanya has kind of tried to direct attention away from this. In the interview, he comically stated, after being asked about it, "Why are you staring at my titty?" And yeah, so that was really all we got from him about it. And what's interesting is that if it was a pec tear, he didn't say anything about it, or anything of that nature, which you would think you would do if you were if that was the case anyway, you know? What do you call it? So that actually kind of raises my suspicion a little bit more about the whole issue. Um, there's a good channel that had a video about this. I believe it's called More Plates, More Dates. Um, he's a channel that does a lot of stuff about like natty or not videos. He's an endocrinologist, so he has some good knowledge on the topic. So and also did a little bit of the speculation I'm talking about Izzy directing attention away from the strange pec. But yeah, so it the weird pec scenario could probably be a couple things. It could be roid use, like some sort of specialty roids that would not bulk him up, but perhaps increase his power output, maybe. But that's just speculation. I can't say that for sure. So that could be that, or it could be hell. It could be what Adesanya speculated. It could be something cancerous for all we know, which could be super nasty. He commented on it being sore during camp, which is strange. I don't know why it would be sore or in what manner it would be sore. It looks like would be uncomfortable, but if it's sore, I don't know if that would indicate a tear. Tears and things like that tend to be of a sharper pain variety, so it would not point to that in all likelihood. So maybe it's a cyst of some kind, like similar to like a ganglion cyst. It could be a really weird calcium deposit of some kind, which I don't know why that would happen, but just figured I'd bring that up because it's kind of the glaring issue in MMA that kind of got neglected a couple pods ago. But that's that's the only real large thing to speak of that's going on at the moment. Not a lot going on in my life since last we spoke or anything like that. Really really missing my sport. Really missing fighting. Um Made some developments since my last fight, which were desperately needed. I won't go too much into it because I'm not trying to like out myself on like any game plans or anything, but I hope to give you guys a better fight than last time. By the time February rolls around, and that's all I can really talk about to speak of. So what you call it? Um, yeah, I can't really think of much else that would be pertinent to say. Um, so I guess I'll just do the outro here. Subscribe to the pod if you like the pod. Turn on notifications, of course. We don't upload often here, but we're trying to be better about it. I promise you guys. I'll try and get to this whenever I think about it. So try and make this a better habit. I want to give you guys some more content. We started the channel hoping to do every other week, but it seems like it's not going to turn out quite that frequently, but maybe we'll get it there in time, so long as I build this as a better habit. But anyway, like I said, like and subscribe if you like the pod. Turn on notifications. Izzy Adesanya's Peck Bless.